Fact or fiction? Neurodiverse hiring improves company culture. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, my name's Ben Schatzel, and for the past 5 years I've been working with companies to help them strategically hire and retain neurodiverse talent. Company culture fundamentally shapes all of the experiences that we have at work. But culture in itself is deeply complex and can't be boiled down to simply good culture versus bad culture. So today, we're going to answer one big question. Does hiring autistic people actually improve company culture? But first, let's define culture. According to B.F. Skinner, the father of modern behaviorism, culture consists of 3 primary elements: a network of communication, historically informed customs, and collectively shared values.
I think today we have reached the point where not only can we dream about a better way of life, but we can make specific proposals. And that's where my own work comes in. I've been for 35 years concerned with behavior.
Have you ever worked at a job that had bad communication practices? Well, here's the good news. You're in the vast majority. In fact, 86% of workers cite poor communication as a top workplace concern. And 68% of employees who have left their jobs cite poor communication as a top reason why. Unfortunately, this information doesn't tell us a whole lot. Sure, we know that people want better communication at work, but here's the rub. Everything is communication. The words we say, our body language, inflection of voice, preferred platforms of communication, the ways in which we express ourselves, and the points we choose to emphasize in a conversation. All of these and more are elements of communication. I do not want to read a 12-paragraph email. I don't care if it's the most beautifully loquacious email ever written. I don't care if it has everything that I would ever need to know. I don't want to read it, and that is not effective communication. The point here is that whether it's in the workplace or the world at large, communication greatly influences the products and ideas which define a culture. And if we're looking to mature our culture internally, then it requires a critical evaluation of how we conduct workplace communication.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean that they're best done that way. And that's the idea behind the second leg of culture, historically informed customs. Or, as they're often referred to in the workplace, operations. But it goes beyond just operations, because these customs really pertain to any processes or collective behaviors which we may engage in at the workplace. If your company does a fire drill every quarter, then that's part of the culture. If there's a safety training every Friday, then that's part of the culture. Employee birthdays, annual celebrations, dress code, employee discipline, the design of the job processes themselves. All of this plays a role in company culture. That's right. Even things like job processes, trainings, and safety are all functionally tied to their role in culture. Because these processes must be reinforced through value. A custom only persists if the group finds it valuable. And that's the engine of a strong culture. Our shared values determine which customs we keep and which we discard. Now, let's talk about values. Because values, particularly social values, are what most people think that culture is all about. But as we know, culture involves more than just values. And values involves more than just social values. Because values also includes company values, like quality, efficiency, and customer service. Profit is another type of company value, along with brand recognition, community engagement, and strategic partnerships. And any of these values have the ability to reinforce cultural customs. Now, all of this probably sounds very abstract, so let's break it down by talking about a few real-world examples. Think about ancient Egypt. A powerful yet predictable event emerged from their environment, the annual flooding of the Nile. But this wasn't just an event. It was a problem that demanded a solution. So Egyptian culture began to value precise land surveying as a response to the flooding. Over time, this cultural value reinforced advancements in mathematics and trigonometry. That value, born from an existential problem, is what ultimately led to the design of the pyramids. The flooding of the Nile led to a value for precision in mathematics, which created one of the wonders of the world.
Hey, Benny! Looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river!
Now, let's jump to 20th century Japan, specifically the Nintendo company, which had a long-standing custom of creating traditional Japanese toys like Hanafuda cards. But when the market shrank in the late 1900s, they faced a crisis of their own. They could have clung to their traditional customs and hoped that the market returned to past form, but instead they looked to their core values: innovation, quality, and the joy of childhood. These values guided them to pivot from toys to electronic toys and then to video games. The customs and operations changed dramatically, but it was a change driven by a deep fidelity to their core values. They didn't abandon their culture, they reinvigorated their culture by going all in on values. Finally, let's look at Chicago in the 1970s. It was during this time that the Vienna Beef Hot Dog Company decided that it was time to move to a modernized, new facility. Their new process was more efficient, but everybody agreed the hot dogs just didn't taste the same as before. What's worse? They tasted worse. That distinct pink color and flavor was gone. One night, some employees were chatting with the executives after work, and they discovered the secret wasn't in the recipe, but in a custom, one which was totally overlooked during the relocation. An old-timer named Frank shared that he was the one who used to hand-deliver the hot dogs across the factory, passing by large cookers and radiators which would pre-warm the hot dogs, a custom which was eliminated by the shift to a newly automated process. That small, unconscious custom was the secret ingredient. Vienna Beef knew that they valued efficiency, but they almost lost touch with what they truly valued most: tradition and quality.
Yes, it will. It's not going to fit. Christ.
Can you just help me out? It's going to fit.
So what do the Nile, Nintendo, and beef hot dogs have to do with hiring autistic people? Everything. Because culture isn't just about social values. It's a dynamic life cycle of communication, customs, and values. To make it stronger, you need people who can see those components clearly. And that's where autism comes into play. Because autistic employees tend to be highly objective in their analysis. This means challenging assumptions and developing precise practices of communication. Analyzing customs objectively, asking why a process exists, and developing systems for operations. And identifying true values, because autistic people aren't always swayed by social norms. They may be the ones to spot that critical, almost lost detail that everyone else overlooks. The Frank in your process. Hiring autistic talent isn't just about checking a diversity box. It's about injecting a vital and unique perspective into your cultural engine. It's about inviting the full breadth of human experience into your workplace. And when you do that, you don't just get a more inclusive setting, you also get a culture that is more innovative, precise, and resilient, because it's built on the foundations of communication, examined customs, and authentic values. So, does hiring autistic people actually improve culture? Of course! Let's get to work. If you like this video, I recommend you check out my recent episode about the weirdness of professionalism and why it disadvantages autistic people. And please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. Finally, if you've got a favorite cultural custom or something else that you'd like to see discussed, let's chat about it in the comments. Maybe it'll become a topic for a future video. You've been watching Spectrum Network. See you next time.